Good morning, good evening, good midday, wherever you are. Welcome once again to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss everything regarding HR and everything regarding human capital. This is the Aurum podcast, and we are so glad that you could join us. My name is Anthony Kuria, and with me is the usual crew that we have in this podcast. Zipporah Kuria, the MD of Aurum Consultants, welcome.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching us from. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
And also the HR specialist that consultants consult with, Madam Martha Thuku.
Thank you, Anthony. Greetings, everyone. We are greeting you from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to our podcast today. Whatever time you are watching, you are welcome, and I'm sure we are going to have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Indeed, the Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, a human resource and risk advisory consultancy, and we deal with everything that regards human capital and building winning teams. This month of September, we have begun it afresh, uh, discussing a new topic. As we always do, every month we have a fresh theme, a fresh topic that we discuss about everything regarding the workplace and building winning teams. And this month we want to discuss workplace compliance. And in particular, we want to talk about what do we want to talk about? Yes, we want to talk about HR audits, human resource audits. And we are so glad that you could join with us in this month. Now, ladies, people talk about audits all the time. And the mention of audits, most of the time, issues that people think about is the normal financial audit. The audit that comes in to see how are your books in the course of the year. Sometimes it can encompass everything regarding the company, risk management, blah, blah, blah. So to the people who have never heard about HR audit, Zippy, let me start with you. What is HR? What is a HR audit?
Oh, thank you, Anthony, for that question. And you're right when you talk about audits. Every time we hear about audits, we think about financial audits. We think about making our returns with the relevant authorities. But there are many other audits organizations do. And one of those audits is actually HR audits. And when we are looking at HR, we are basically looking at people, we are looking at systems, we are looking at processes. And the first step of a corporate growth is understanding your challenges or the pitfalls you're likely to fall into. And for us to be able to understand what these HR audits are, it's important for us to know what are the weak points in our business so that we can have an advance of understanding this and be further ahead in terms of coming with resolutions to these challenges. In very brief way, HR audit is a process that evaluates the human resource department performance. It examines various aspects of the HR department within a company. And of course, we look at things like the practices, the policies, the processes, procedures, documentation. Sometimes we also look at the compliance levels, which is actually very major when it comes to the HR department. And we want to know how compliant are we with the legal statutories that are required for us as a company where people are concerned, but not just looking at compliance from that level. We need to look at it from a point of where do we want to take our business? We have something we are benchmarking with. Probably we are working towards best practices. So if we are working towards best practices, how are we going to measure how we are achieving those particular measures we put in place? How are we achieving those objectives we put in place towards achieving best practices? We must have a system or a process where we are able to go back and audit what we are doing, what we are set to do, where we are at, and what we are doing to achieve the same. Where are the challenges, and how do we come up with solutions to those challenges we are facing. When you're looking at documentation, a lot of times you'll find there's a lot of loopholes in documentation. And one of the things I've realized is a setup for failure is when you think you know, or when you think you have done your best, and someone else comes and checks your work, and you realize, whoa, there's a lot of things actually that I had not thought about. When I
Mm.
look at things like contracts, for example, you will think you probably have done your best in doing, the contract templates and all that, until someone else who has more experience, more exposure, maybe they've dealt with a lot of legal aspects of contracts, and they come and look at your contracts and they realize there are gaps, probably even the way you have worded your contracts. So it's important for us to, think about doing HR audits, and not just internally doing these audits, but also encouraging, inviting experts who are from outside, who will be able to look at your systems, at your processes, as to your documentation with a different eye, with a different perspective, so that they can give you a true picture. And the goal is to look at these areas of exposure for the business and make sure where there is a legal perspective of this aspect of the business, then these challenges are resolved on a timely manner. You look at it again from a business strategic perspective when we are doing these audits to see, are we achieving our objectives? So I would think it's a very simple process that would help us look back and see whether we are achieving what we're supposed to be achieving.
That's a very good intro, Zippy. You've given us an idea. To those who are listening to us and want to understand, listening or watching us, that's a very good intro that you've given. Martha, from your perspective, having worked in the corporate and NGO world and having done these things a number of times, what's your perspective about HR audits?
Thanks, Anthony. And indeed, I agree with Zippy totally. What I can say is that when you talk about HR audit, you can't talk about HR audit without thinking risk and without thinking compliance. So,
Uh-huh.
like all those go hand in hand. So, the organizations that are diligent and they want to continue growing and expanding their span within the community they work in, they're very keen on compliance and risk issues. And so you will find they are not just concentrating on finance, but they're concentrating on even HR and every other department with the organization to ensure that they audit themselves. I look at audit and I remember myself looking at myself in a mirror, maybe in the morning. I'm sure all of us, most of us, if not all of us, before you leave your house, you first go and look at the mirror, the way you look, and
Mm,
you check whether you had some breakfast and you left some bread somewhere on your face. So
mm,
audit is like that. It's like a
mm,
mirror. You
mm,
check your policies, you check your processes, you check your
mhm,
procedures, and what are you
mhm,
checking them against? Zippy has
mhm,
said that against best practices, against the law, the
mhm,
Employment Act, the
mhm,
things that you do, most things of in HR, how to handle stuff, it's actually outlined in the employment labor laws. Some of them
mm,
are so clear as 1, 2, 3, 4. You this step, this step, this step. Employment contracts, it's outlined what is supposed to contain.
mm,
So you
mm,
take your employment contracts, you go to the law and you check whether
mm,
you are
mm,
working well. So
mhm,
that once you do yourself those, let me call them audit, then even when you call, maybe if you have an internal auditor or an external, you will already have kind of put your
mm,
things in place.
mhm,
So
mm,
for me, I look at audit like that, like a mirror. I check myself for compliance, I check myself for risk, and I check my processes and procedures to benchmark
mm,
with my comparators, the
mhm.
comparators of the organization I'm working with, and
Yes.
pick the best practice and maybe whatever it is else is in the labor market, because then
Yes.
it helps you get to understand yourself and whether you can be confidently say my processes are good, are in good condition. Thanks.
Very good, Martha. You have given us, adding to what Zippy has said, you have given us a clear understanding. What is the purpose of having a HR audit? But Zippy, let me come back to you, because an entrepreneur listening to us right now and thinking, okay, you've okay, the logic, you've spoken a bit of logic, but really, isn't that just another cost that you're adding to me on top of whatever I'm doing? So the question is, what is the purpose of carrying out? I know Martha has hinted about it using the analogy of the mirror in your bathroom, but really, a hard-nosed entrepreneur will ask, what is the purpose of carrying out a HR audit for the organization? Why am I going to spend money carrying out a HR audit while I have the normal audit that I carry out in my business? I have an internal auditor probably auditing my systems, my this and that, and then I have an external auditor to help prepare the books. What is the purpose of having an HR audit being carried out for the organization?
Anthony, just you asking that question makes me almost want to laugh, because we are very good and very quick to look at the health status of the business from a financial angle. Yet at the same time, we actually always say our biggest asset is people who actually help us bring the finances to the business. So we want to audit in terms of finances because, of course, that is the bottom line, and that is what makes us going. But who helps us get that money we are looking for, the profits? Who is helping us serve our customer? It's the employees. So if we don't take the HR aspect of a business seriously, and I will go back to what I said when we were starting. When you think you know, or when you think you have the best, and your systems are top notch, there's nothing to change, there's nothing to improve on. The truth is, you're setting yourself up for failure. I always keep on going back and looking what I did like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and I realize I have learned a lot along the way, and I have improved along as I go, a lot as I go along. So it's very important for us to actually realize there's a purpose for it. And Mother has alluded to this. When we are looking at HR audits, number one, we are looking, are we compliant? A lot of times when we go into business, the first thing we are thinking about is how do I operate my business? How do I make sure, I have products? I have one person, maybe two people to help me run the business. But we rarely think about the so many compliance areas that are expected of us as business people. I have met so many employers, and every time you mention something like NITA or something like OSHA, they're like, what kind of an animal is that? Who is that? And you realize people don't know. And I don't know whether sometimes it's from a place of ignorance, or we are caught up in the rat race of making money. We don't take time to think about what is actually the government asking of me. And sometimes when you have these conversations, you will hear employers saying, we are getting tasks left, right, and center. There's too much red taping. There's too much requirements to run a business. Why do I need to do all this? And I've realized a lot of times people want to hide, and they will say, I will not deal with it until it's a problem. And of course, when it's a problem, it's a very big mountain. So there's a purpose for actually doing an HR audit. And what it helps you know is, what is the health status of your business, where people are concerned, where the systems and the processes of people are concerned. What is the health status of my business? Whether I am going to implement the report or not, it's important for me to be aware, to know beforehand, these are the pitfalls I'm likely to fall into. These are the challenges I'm likely to face if I don't comply. So compliance is very key, and is one of the biggest purposes of making sure we are doing HR audits. When you look at people in the hospitality industry, you will realize there's a requirement for anyone who is handling food. They are required to have a food handler certificate every 6 months. Very easily that can be actually forgotten, and no one is checking, after 6 months, do we have compliance for everyone? Sometimes these licenses probably are expiring at different times. Are we having someone who is actually constantly checking on this? It's a compliance area. If you are caught by the authorities, then you find there's a lot of challenges that could even make you close your business. So compliance is very critical when you're doing HR audits, and you are able to know these are my risk exposures, and this is what I need to do to mitigate these exposures. The other purpose for HR audits, it helps the HR department understand the areas of improvement. What are the areas we need to work on? Maybe it's the way we manage our people. Maybe it's the way we manage our um, employee relations. We need to look at the areas that we are not strong at, and we're able to get feedback even from the other actors within the company, and we are able to come up with solutions and see how do we improve the service delivery from an HR department? How do we become the best support for the organization as an HR department? Of course, the other thing I'm looking at is resource allocation. A lot of times you'll find the HR department is not allocated resources, or they are allocated very minimal resources. And unfortunately, when HR works with finance, HR is always looking like they are always spending money and they're not bringing the money. And I think that narrative is changing. And why is it changing? Because you cannot make money without people. You cannot say HR is consumer. We are consuming. We are actually part of the people who are bringing in money. We are contributing to the KPI for finances. When you're looking at the balance scorecard, one of the things that you look at is finances. Now, when you're looking at finances, how are you going to achieve those finances? You have to look at the element of people. So you can't come and just say HR is just consuming, because the HR itself is actually helping you achieve your financial goal. So we are contributing a very big percentage in terms of finances. So I think as employers, as entrepreneurs, we need to stop having the mindset of HR is just consuming. And when we have a mindset of understanding how are people helping me achieve this objective or this KPI, then you allocate budgets for training. You will find organizations, when you talk about training, they'll tell you we don't have budgets for training. But what happens when you don't train people? They don't give you the results you're looking for. They don't
Exactly.
achieve their objectives. They don't understand things to do with performance. You find you are having a lot of behavioral issues, and people are leaving the organization, or people are unhappy for whatever reason. People are not remunerated well. People are not rewarded well. But where is that budget going to come from if HR is not allocated the proper resources? So when we do the HR audits, we are able to actually check some of these things and say, these areas we need to work on, we need to improve on these areas. When you're looking, and I'll go back again to compliance, for instance, the minimum wage. The other day we had the minimum wage, raised by 12%. And I can tell you today, the employers who actually don't know, you mention it to them and you're like, oh, when was that raised? Like, it was raised in May 1st. We're in August. You needed to have complied in May. Okay, perhaps the Gazette notice took longer and it was enacted in July, but you are liable to actually implement that from May. So again, when you're doing these audits, you are able to pick out these gaps and you're able to save yourself a lot of challenges. Of course, you need to look at how do we improve the future of the business by doing these audits. Where are the opportunities for the department? Where are the opportunities for the business? How can we incorporate this into the strategy of the business so that all of us are moving towards the same direction? So I think that would be majorly the purpose of carrying an HR audit.
Wow, wow, Zippy, you've given us a very good hint of the reason why. You've spoken like a proper consultant. The reason why a HR audit is critical. And you've spoken, there's something that you've said there that I think to our listeners and viewers in the business world, uh, something that I could conclude and say there, you've brought the aspect of HR being a strategic partner to management, the same way finance is a strategic partner to to management. For so long, the CFO has been the person who has an ear to the CEO all the time. It's only now, especially during the last 2-3 years when COVID has occurred, that it's been realized that HR has a strategic role to play in any organization in things like how do we handle redundancies, how do we hire people, how do people work out of, work from home, how do we bring people working from home back to the office setting, How do we hire right? How do we get the right, because right now there is serious competition for the best talent, both to hire and retain. So, and the HR audit plays a big role in enabling executives, decision makers within corporations to make that decision. Martha, from your perspective, what is the role? What is the purpose of the HR audit? What goal does it give to an organization to execute a HR audit?
Thanks, Tony. And again, I agree totally with ZP. It's a critical area, and for me, I'll just give a few reasons why or what role it plays. And one of the roles it plays, and I mentioned earlier, is that you are mirroring yourself. You want to see that that your processes, your policies are in compliance with A, the labor laws, and B, like for the NGO world, the donor has rules and regulations, and
Mm,
you need to match up your policies, your procedures, to match up with them, because then should you not comply, they are very serious, by the way, about their rules and regulations. Even in HR, your recruitment processes, everything that you do in HR, should you not comply, then your funding can dwindle. So compliance is one of the reasons why you do HR audit. Another reason is checking risks in the, and I know, Tony, you're big on risks, and I'm sure you understand
mm,
this area. That
yes.
when you say risk, you're saying in your department, you want to concentrate on checking out. You look at the areas that can be risky, or
Mm,
that what is the other word, that has a potential for risk. So
yes.
when you look at the areas that has a potential for risk, it gives you an opportunity to to check what would cause this risk, and then mitigate it before the risk happens. Why?
Hmm.
Because when the risk happens, then it could be a very costly affair. So it is so important that you check the areas of risk in HR in every angle. You can
Hmm.
imagine that, and from all our discussions, we have always said all these things we talk about really begin and end with the culture of the organization. So there are some organizations whose culture is just to audit finance, but there are some other cultures that are vibrant, that they want their organization to grow, that they don't want their organization to close down, that they
Yes.
want to have good reputation out there, and also they want to have in sync synergies in the office with the staff. So those organizations are the ones we are talking about, and the ones who have not even attempted to try auditing, or any HR listening to us who does not do regular checkups, check-ins and checkouts in HR
Mm,
department, you are
yes.
really posing your organization at a risk, because you might think that you know it all, and you may not. And what I have learned about the law is that some things keep adding,
Mm,
and unless you are in tabs like this, or you have a
mhm,
group like we have, we keep asking each other, oh, what is that, what did the president accent to? if
mm,
if you don't have such a group, and you're just on your own and you're not auditing, you don't have a labor lawyer who is in touch, or you don't have Oram, who people like Oram consultants who also keep tabs with what is happening in the
mm,
in the in the HR world,
mm,
then you risk your organization. So that's why audits are there, to just check the risk areas and make sure you mitigate those risks, because as we have
mm,
said, you'd rather spend time checking
mhm.
than spend money and your reputation trying to
Rectify.
deal with the risk areas in the organization. So I'm really trying to just give a case for HR audit, because then it helps you mitigate risks. Thank you very much, Tony.
Ladies, you are really bringing this very well. And to you who is listening to us, watching us, As you said, we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, and if you do have questions, you have, you're puzzled, you are intrigued, and you want to learn more. We are live on Facebook at the moment. You can always shoot in your questions, comments, understanding, and you'd like to know more. Kindly send in your questions, send in your comments. And now, as we hit this road really well, the third question that comes to my mind is, what areas do we audit or do we look into when we do a HR audit? Zippy, somebody may ask me that, okay, we know the guy who is doing the audit for finances, for the accountant who is an auditor. We know the things he looks for. He asks for, there are certain books that he asks for. So the HR audit, what areas do they look into? An entrepreneur, a business owner, business executive may ask that question, that, okay, you guys are talking sense, but which areas are you coming to look into? Probably, if you can give us some hints of the same.
Thank you, Anthony. I think it depends on who is doing the audit and for what purpose you're doing the audit, because there are many areas that you need to look into when you're doing an audit. And I have realized as HR consultants, we go beyond just looking at HR alone, but looking at the organization as a whole from a bigger perspective. But if I was to narrow down to just the HR audit, there are many areas. And one of the areas, and I will touch on a few, I'm sure Mother will touch on the rest, is, for example, hiring process. One of the biggest challenges I've realized as organizations we fall into is how we bring people into organizations. Now, I work with SMEs majorly, and I've
Mm,
realized a very big problem where there's a practice of I want the professionalism of it, but on the other side, I want to do things my way. I want HR to hire right, but I will go and bring someone behind the scenes and say, give this person a contract. And what happens, that brings a lot of challenges, a lot of chaos into the organization because there's no order in terms of the way we are doing things. So we want to look at, and again, I'm coming from a place of what are the best practices? What are we trying to achieve here? Why are we even running this business and where are we looking at taking it? Do we want to run
mm,
this business as a kiosk, or do we want to run this business in a way that is going to grow beyond us, that is going to actually multiply and be a blessing to other people? So if I'm looking at it from that perspective, I need to look at my processes. So hiring, how do we hire? What is the process from the managers? How do they identify a position? How does it go to the, to the HR? How does it go to the recruitment stage? And how do we end up
mm,
bringing someone into the organization? Of course, we look at how do you onboard people when you come in? What is the employee journey experience like in this organization? You've been here for the last 2 years. What have been your experiences? What are some of the challenges you're seeing as an
mm,
employee that are challenges that need to be resolved? Some of them are touching probably on compliance. You will find an employer probably is deducting statutories and they're not paying those statutories. It's a compliance area, but it's affecting the employee directly because money has come from my salary, it's not being remitted, and it's affecting me because I don't know what the organization is doing about this. When you're looking at, and I've touched this a bit on when I was talking about the minimum wage, the payroll, do we have a salary scale? How do we remunerate people in this organization? Do we give salaries based on how the boss feels? Or is there a structured way of deciding this cadre of employees? This is a salary range, and based on qualifications, based on experience, based on many other parameters, so that there is equity within the organization. Why do people become unhappy? And they think so and
mm,
so earns more money than I do, and I do more work than them, or I have more
mm,
experience than them. How do we make sure those issues are not coming up? The benefit packages we're giving these people, how do we determine that? What is the process? What is the system of being able to come up with this? And we are able to identify. And sometimes you might think, oh, I don't need all that. But how are you handling
mm,
it in your organization? It's a game of, I don't know, it's a game of chess, but you do as you wish or you feel as the boss. But it creates a lot of chaos within the organization. It's probably
mm,
okay to do that when maybe you have one or two employees, but it's still not okay. Because the moment you start doing it the wrong way, it starts becoming a challenge when the business starts to grow. So you need to start from the word go, doing things in the right way. When you're looking at termination, how do you terminate people? Someone has stolen from you. And here is
Mm.
Zipporah, who is the HR consultant, telling you have to follow process, you have to follow procedure to terminate them. And sometimes you have to terminate and pay them. And as a boss, you're wondering, why do I need to do that? There's a legality to it, there's a compliance element to it. If you don't do it right, you get the organization into a place of disrepute, you get to the place of being sued. You start losing finances and reputation because of not doing things the right way.
Mm.
So when we are doing this audit, we look at many, many areas. We look at the employees and probably do the employee survey and get to understand how are they engaged. We get to understand how do they feel about this organization. Would they be able to recommend this organization? Would they be able to want to come back if they were to leave? So it's like we fact find. We kind of get a lot of information that would give us not just to find out what are the negatives, because the negatives are there. If I go looking for the faults, I can guarantee you, even the best organizations, you will find the faults. But we are fact finding because we want to make it better. We want to create a system where this organization is actually growing from being good to being better to being, a great organization. So there's a lot of areas that we are able to look at. So I will allow Martha to contribute to this as well.
Yes, Martha. What's your take on what areas of HR audit does that HR auditor come to check out?
I agree with Zippy totally. First, let me mention that when you invite internal auditors to come and audit you, they will audit you against your policies. What you have said
Mm.
you will do versus what you are doing. So that needs to be clear. They will not audit anything that is hook or haphazard. It is what you have promised in your policies, HR manual, whatever. So
Mhm.
Zippy has mentioned all those areas of HR. My take is that those are the areas, every area in HR, everything in from recruitment to exit, that whole cascade of the functions of HR. And me, what maybe I can advise is that, as I said, it's a mirror. You are a mirror when you're auditing. You're mirroring yourself. It's good to come up with a worksheet and list all those things. Have you ever been to do a medical? When you are doing a full medical, you are given a report that says the normal is this, but your
Yes,
condition is this.
that way.
So you can actually tick where you're doing well health-wise and where you. So really an audit is a health check for you as a HR person. So you
Mm.
list all those things Zippy has mentioned, and then you put what is the because the law gives the minimum. So the law doesn't say you do what they are saying. They are saying you do this or better, but not worse. So you put the
Mm.
minimum as per the law. Then if you are one of these great organizations, you want to benchmark with organizations who are your comparators and you want to be like them or better than them, then you put what in the other column, you put for every area what they do. And then now you put your where you are at.
Mm.
So you're able
Mhm.
to kind of at a glance see that report and you put it up there, HR audit. This is
Yes.
this is the issue. This is what the law says. This is what our comparators are doing, and this is what we are doing. That
Mhm.
way, you are able to see at a glance where you are at. And even
Mm.
when you're a HR person, if you present that even to your directors during your senior management meetings, just to show them that this is where we are at with this.
Mhm.
If we go on like this one will give us, we are in trouble in this area. Here we can kind of, because some of these things will require money. So you
Mhm.
make sure that you are able to project to the directors that this is a risk area. If we don't
Mhm.
mitigate it, we are going to be in a lot of trouble. So those are the areas you need to, and more so because these are areas that involve staff. So if you want to be an organization that employs high caliber staff, those are the things that you need to do, because your reputation out there is known, what you do. If you are doing madhokodhanio, or if you are strict with your policies. Policies can be written, but nothing is going on. No one is following. So when,
Yeah.
when an auditor asks for a policy, you're able to give. But is this what you're practicing? So
Mm.
that's the really reasons, and those are the areas that you need to audit yourself. Thank you very much.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and maybe, Anthony, just before you say something, Mother has talked about auditing against policies. And the
Mm.
question probably you're asking yourself, I don't have policies, so why do I need to audit? And
Yes.
and I think that would be a question probably coming from a place of ignorance, or you are either not serious, because there is the labor laws which actually act as a basic policies you should follow. But the
Mm.
labor laws are merely a guide. You need to have policies that strengthen the running of your organization. Where the law does not cover some issues, and Mother will tell you, every day in a HR department is a very unique day. It's a different day. Rarely will you find one day that is like the other day. Rarely will
Mm.
you deal with a disciplinary case that is actually like the other disciplinary case. And you need to actually make sure you have covered all these areas within your policies, so that when things happen, you are not wondering, what do we do? Or is Mother who decides to make her own decision based on the whim? Or is the director who decides to make their own decision based on how they feel? So it's very
Yes.
important for us, if we don't have those policies we can be able to use as a guide, then to fall back to the employment laws. But I would also highly encourage you to make sure you have policies in place, because that is what really guides your business.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Zippy, by the way, as far as
Yes,
policies
indeed.
are
Yes. Yes,
concerned,
Mother.
I wanted to qualify what Zippy is saying, but let me tell you, as far as policies are concerned, even if you
Yes.
don't have them in writing, you see, policies is what you do every day. You have them. Tony, you know how you recruit. Yeah, you have a
Mm.
process or an SOP in your head. So all
Mm-hmm.
policies do, and I'm talking to the SMEs, all you need to do is document that. Once you document that, then you need to now start checking it against, now doing the audit against the law, against anything that can lead you in trouble. So whether they are written or not, the policies are there. You can never say that you don't have policy, because there is someone you sacked yesterday. Which process did you follow? There's someone you employed yesterday. Which process did you follow? The salaries you are giving, how did you come up with that salary? So you see, they are there even if they are not written. So
Mm.
the SME team, you know very well that they are in your head. Please put them down, and then I'll start doing the audit, so that you make sure you
Yes.
comply to whatever you need to comply with, and your business will grow very well. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Martha, I'm laughing because you're saying the SME owners and directors who are here, who have all their policies in their head, they have never been put on paper. That happens a lot. But I would like to tell to our viewers and our listeners, indeed, we here at Aurum Consultants can help you put your policies from the head to the paper, and and that begins from HR audits. And in my professional life, I remember internal auditors used to strike fear, the fear of God in in any and every employee, because when you hear auditors are coming internal, I remember people would sweat bullets. So HR audits probably don't strike the fear of God in that manner. They don't put the fear of God in that manner, but they are as essential as those other audits that come in, that probably are a bit more familiar and a bit more terrifying. But the HR audits are not as terrifying, at least not to, if you've been doing well, unless you're being audited by the Ministry of, by KRA, or by, it could be DOSH issues, for example, regarding occupational safety and health at work. Those are HR audits. issues regarding insurance, WIBA, and all that. And these are things we are going to discuss in the coming weeks. Those are part of HR audits. So it's very important for entrepreneurs, business executives, and business owners to appreciate the the need to to do audits, HR audits, and have HR policies in place. And if you have a question and you're wondering, how do I begin? Where do I start? Where do I begin? Do I have them? Do I not have them? How can I know the status of my HR policies and my people? Get in touch with us. Our contacts are at the bottom of the screen. You can get in touch with us through WhatsApp, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, and other social media mediums, and even by phone or via our website. You can always get in touch with us on the same end. We will help you look at your workplace compliance and give you direction and help to be able to put these things in place. Martha, Zippy, thank you very much for your time, for giving us very deep insights. Kionjo tu tuseme, kionjo tu, giving us a taste of what compliance is all about. And as Mother said in a funny way there, you're doing your own Mathogodanio. Well, there is a place to be able to organize that, to organize that confusion and bring it to a place of order. Having said that, we thank you for taking time to join with us this weekend, this Saturday. And as I said, this month we'll be discussing workplace compliance, because this is something so basic, so essential for any business, NGO, SME, if you're a corporate, if you're a non-profit organization, whatever classification you are in, compliance in the workplace is something very critical, and we will give this month to discuss the same. So if you have any questions, you have any query, kindly get in touch with us, and we would love to partner with you on the same. So thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your weekend. Till next week. God bless you.